Hey guys, welcome to this part of the tutorial series of creating a 3D image carousel. So we created the basic HTML foundation of what we're going to work with, and then now we're going to add, and then we added the CSS reset. And now we're going to, and this is what we have so far. We just have three small images showing up. And if we go back, this is our final product. So what we have is 1, 2, 3, these 3 small images that are currently lined up to the left right here. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add the background image. So if you can see the background image, if we move, so this image and this background image are separate. If I go to our images, if I open this in Reveal and Explore images, we have the small image, the 3 small images showing up here, and then we have the larger, wider versions of the images in the background. So this one is 300 by 300 width by 450 pixels height. The larger images are they're a lot larger. They're like 4,896 width and 3,264 height pixels, and they're going to be in the background. So I wanted to briefly explain how the background image actually works. Actually, let's create the CSS first, and then I'll explain. Let's do the CSS for the background image right now, and then I'll explain a bit after we have code, or while we're coding. So I'm going to go to I'm going to go to index, and then I'm going to go up here and say link. We're going to create .css main.css, save. Then I'm going to control click it here and then create a file in VS Code. So this is what we have so far, and I'm going to start adding the CSS. So first we want to add a body background color of black, and that's because in case I think, yeah, I'm going to the overall mood of the image slider in the background is kind of dark, so we're just gonna put the body background to blank, and then we're going to say background carousel. This one right here, this div right here with the 3 background images. We're going to make this equal to position fixed, because we don't want any scroll bars when it's overflowing. We just want whatever the viewport height and width is to be displayed only, and index of 0, which is going to be our lowest z-index that we use in this tutorial. I didn't include any minus z-indexes, and then I also included z-indexes of like up to 1,000, I think. I spread out the numbers easy because that's how it's easier to just see it that way when we're coding. But most likely in a real life coding situation, you want to use smaller z-indexes, but I just use larger ones just to make things more clear. You can change it as you go along if you want to. Then let's see, let's go to background image 1, and then I want 2 and then 3. So let's see, this is these 3 divs right here, these 3 background image divs, and we're going to position them as absolute, and they're inside the body. They're inside the background carousel div. They're inside this div right here. This one right here. So it's going to that one's going to be fixed, and this one's going to be positioned absolute based on the parent background carousel div. Top is going to be 0. Left is going to be minus 100 viewport width. Height is going to be 100 viewport height. Total width is going to be 300 viewport width, and I'll explain this in 1 second. And then background position is going to be center. Background repeat, no repeat. Then background size cover. cover is because we want the image to expand so that it, at least at the minimum, it fills the entire viewport width and height that we're creating. So it's going to be stretched out, but it doesn't really matter because it's going to be very blurred. I added a blur to make it more like a background image when we're going through our slides. So it's a blurred version of this smaller image. I tried creating a blurred image of this small image, but it's too small, so I had to go back to actually using the bigger, larger images, the ones that like these ones that are huge. I had to go back to using these huge images because even for the blurred images, they're a bit too pixelated if I stretch it out that much, because we're stretching out by 3 times the viewport height, viewport width. 3 times the viewport width. Viewport width is 100. And we're stretching it out by 3 times that, so it's and we're cutting off the top and bottom, and it gets stretched out quite a bit. So even as a blurred image, I wanted to create a use a larger base image. So that's what background cover does, and then transition is the second 1.2 seconds in duration of how long it takes to change the CSS properties that we're going to target. And we want this transition duration property to work only on these CSS properties, which is opacity, left, and right. Because right now it's left 100, minus 100, and then so it's on the left there's minus 100 viewport width. So whatever, right now if this is the viewport width, from here to here that's about 1000 pixels or 800 pixels. There's 800 pixels to the left, which is minus 100 viewport width, and then 800 more pixels to the right, which is plus 100 viewport width. So in total there's 300 viewport width. And viewport width is not based on pixels. Viewport width is based on it is based on pixels, but it's based on how much you stretch it. So the wider you stretch it, the larger the viewport gets, and the more zoomed in, magnified the images. I don't think the images get zoomed in, but actually it does. So if you zoom out like this, the background images do get bigger. So there's the reason why I put minus 100 is because later in our final code we're going to move it by 50 each time I move it to the left. So if I move it, if I press the left button right here, the background image along with the new faded in image moves to the left 50 viewport width. So I could have done 50 viewport width instead of 100 viewport width, but the problem is if you click left twice or right twice, it has to move 50 viewport width twice. So once, twice. You only see one image each time, but when it's fading in, that's you have to move the image to the left or right then as well. So right now, I'm going to use this image as an example because it's more easier to notice than the other 2 images. And if we move, if I move the center image to the right, so right now the yellow rock or the red rock image, this one right here, is to the right here. It's on viewport. It's to the right of this center viewport. If I move it to the left, it transitions 50 viewport from the left. So there's only 50 viewport remaining on the right, and there's 150 viewport overflowing on the left. And if we move it again, then it also has to move, like if you look at here, if the background image that's going to fade out, it's actually moving left, while the other image is fading in is also moving to the left 50 viewport width. So if I move it to the left, both are moving together to the left. And that's what creates a smooth background transition effect between the 2 fading background images. And so if you move it viewport to the left twice, that's 100 to the left. If you move it to the right twice, that's that's 100 viewport, 50 viewport width times 2, which is 100 viewport width to the right. So you have to have 100 viewport width extra on the left and the right to account for being able to move to the left or right without running out of background images to do the transition fade-in effect. I hope that makes sense. I know it's complicated, but you have to understand. If you don't get it, just kind of rewind and listen to what I'm saying again, because that's important to understand how this image slider works. So now let's add in the images. I'm going to go to background image 1, and then that's going to be background image linear gradient. RGB 000 for black, 000 for black, and 00, and then 0.8 opacity. That's 80% dark, so it's black. So 80% of black, which is pretty dark, and we want that from left to the right or top to bottom. I'm not sure what the default background image linear gradient traveling linear gradient gradient direction is, but it just doesn't really matter because we're just using it for the full black opacity. And then we're going to say RGB, let's see, 0, 0, 0, 0, no, 0.8. Then the image, which is going to be URL, images, and river 1 large. Opacity is going to be 0 because we want the image 1. There's going to be 3 images. The first one is going to be on the left, the second one is going to be on the center, and the third one is going to be on the right, at least when we start. And then we're going to later use JavaScript to position them differently and put them in an array to then transition between the left and right ones when we click the left or right arrows. And since image 1 is the left one, we wanted to initially have a lower z-index than the center image. So we're going to do a z-index here of 100. I know it's high, but I'm just keeping things simple. And then the center image is going to have a z-index of 200. So let's copy and paste this twice. Then one is going to be 2. The next one is going to be 3. Then here we want to change this to 2. That's, oops. No, that's right. This one's number 1. I got 1 and L mixed up. River 2 large, and then this is river 3 large. And then the center one is going to be 200 z-index, so that's going to be appearing in the center. That's going to be appearing at the top. And opacity is going to be, let's see, and then opacity is going to be 1, so that's going to be visible. So that's the background image that we see right here. So if I do z-index, if I move this one as 1 and then z-index as 300, that's going to be on top, but that's not what we want. That's the first image. We want the center image to go on top. Remember, if we go back to 0 and opacity to see what we had before, this is image 1, this is image 2, this is image 3. So we want the second image, which is this one right here, image 2. We're going to increase that to opacity 1 and z-index of 200. We're going to use JavaScript to change the opacity and the z-index later on, so we can achieve the transition effects. And then we want to also create the blurred effect. And there are multiple ways to do this. This is the one way that I found to create the least amount of bugs. So we want to go to here and say background image 1 before, 2 before, and also 3 before. And we're going to say content is equal to empty, position is absolute. So this is if you think of what, so one way to explain before is before and after is you're kind of creating a div before the background image that's attached to each, before that's attached in front of each background image. After, if you do after instead of before, then that's behind the image. So in this case, we're using before because we want the blurred effect to appear in front of the image, so the entire image looks blurred to us. So width 100%, height is 100%, no, not 100%, 100 viewport height, and backdrop filter is equal to blur 8 pixels, and that's how you create the blurred effect. Now the transition is applying to the left and right, and because the image is always left, if we remove this, then the image won't move around. But and I haven't really, you can add this effect and at the end or something to make this work, but I just for us, we're just going to create the image where it's kind of moving to the left and right a little bit. It's a bit janky, but if you can find a fix for that, that'd be great. I'm just going to leave it as is. This is the code we're going to work for, and it looks fine when we're in full screen mode all the time. It's not that good, but you can fix it. Let's see. So I think that's it for this video, and that's what we have until now. If you want to see if the other images are blurred, you can always change this to 100 and 300. Then that should see that the other images are blurred as well. I'm on the center image right now, so that's going to be at that. And I'll see you guys in the next video.